hearing in Mr. Cullen. At this time, I'll turn the floor over to you, Dr. Cullen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to say good evening, and good evening to the board, good evening to everybody that was here with us back at the central office, as well as those folks who are watching us online. Good evening to you as well. And the purpose of this meeting is public's opportunity to provide feedback on the operating budget for the upcoming year, which also includes some special ARP funding that Ms. Regan has assigned in there as well. Mr. Danner has indicated that there is no public comment for budgetary purposes at this time, so I will turn the floor over to Ms. Susan Mann, Finance Director. Good evening, Ms. Mann.
Good evening, board. Everybody, everyone else, good evening. And welcome to our first public budget meeting to solicit public input for our FY22 budget. So, this afternoon, we're going to talk about our projected budget for our general fund, our special revenues, our capital projects, and take any questions or comments. And to kind of go back to the beginning, the General Assembly started its 40-day session on January the 11th of this year and ended the session on March the 31st. The governor finished his 40 days of signing and vetoing bills on May the 10th. And so we're thankful that the 40-day session was as close to a normal session as possible this year, and they were able to complete the session without a suspension due to COVID-19. Last year was the longest session of record, and that was a very different year for us. So, to give you an update from the General Assembly passed an update to the official code of Georgia Annotated Section 20-2-58 in 2020, which requires the local board of education to review the financial status of the school system at regular meeting during each calendar month. We have always done this. But what they updated was this next sentence. The law further requires the financial status information to include at a minimum a statement of revenue, expenditures, and encumbrances. The update to this section is effective for monthly reporting periods for July 1, 2020. So I have just provided for our information our regulation BIA-R1, which is the accounting system standard operating procedures. I'm not going to go through and read this, but it just really says we follow the financial management of Georgia local units of administration. It also states the different laws that we follow, and that this is the guidelines that we include in our manual and standard operating procedures. So, what does all of this mean? The financial management of Georgia local units of administration has been updated. That's maintained on the Georgia DOE website. Specifically, Chapter 2, with regards to interim financial reporting, has been updated. There's an entire list in that chapter. But to summarize it, item number 6 in Chapter 2 says local school systems are required as of July 1, 2021 to provide the local board of education with a monthly financial status template that includes at a minimum a comparison of budget to actual year-to-date revenue and expenditures, which we've always done. But it also requires monthly revenues received and expenditures incurred, as well as adding the total amount of open purchase orders at the end of each month in the reporting period. So that's the differences and the changes that are coming up. The financial status template should be presented at the same level of detail that the annual budget is approved by the Board of Education. So what this means is beginning with our September board meeting, which is the first meeting that I will present to you in July 2021 financial information. You will receive a financial statement for general fund, or special revenues, which is all special revenues combined, all our sponsor funds combined, and our school nutrition fund. So we've got 4 statements to review, and all 4 statements will include year-to-date revenue and expenditures versus your budget, and month-to-date revenue and expenditures, and everything else. So,
Does anybody have any questions about this? It's slightly different financial information that you're going to receive based on this requirement.
This is required, and auditors will check our board minutes to that we are following. And so that's why the statement's a little different, and that's the update from the assembly. But I wanted you to just go ahead and let you know that this is a public budget meeting to let you know what's coming.
Any other questions?
So we begin for our general fund get their bank needs and wants list for their schools and their programs. And this occurred February 25th and March the 3rd. And we received our midterm allotment sheet with the governor's partial restoration of some of the amended formula adjustment. So our net QBE earnings for FY21 increased approximately $635,000. We have a healthy fund balance. We are debt free, and we are earning and not paying any interest. So that is good going into our budget season for FY23.
I would say regarding the second one, I was thankful for that partial restoration. Offset some of the initial loss that presented to us after the year, which was when we were in the last spring, which was very drastic.
That was great news to get everything.
When y'all invited people to make those suggestions, how did the COVID situation impact you? How did they know what to ask?
With the principals and the directors,
Yes.
well, our goal was to try to, even at that point, we kept looking for the hope that we could have a more normal year, as much of a normal year as possible. And the further along we go, and the trend data continues to show that COVID cases are decreasing, things are looking better. It was sort of, the question was asked in the frame of, let's plan for a more normal year, what are the educational needs and wants to absolutely.
So for our general fund, for our local revenues, this is just the earliest projection that we can come up with. We can notice property taxes I haven't touched. We won't touch that for a while, it's just too early. But I projected our other local revenues increasing really to 6.76%, 1.4 million. And that's actually just basing it, our 21 budget was based on what we had received in 20. So I really wasn't budgeting for growth, I was just budgeting very conservatively that we would receive the same thing we had received before. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, especially with COVID. Really, it's much better to budget, and I'm gonna get what I got last year versus trying to budget for more. So that the same process that I'm taking this year, we'll have more information later. But that's our current projection for the 1.4 million increase in our local revenue. Our state QE revenue, we already have.
Before you go on, is there any questions from the last slide? The logic behind it? I'm just going to being conservative.
Yeah, it's, no one has magic balls, so, you know, we could end up less than what we had the year before, we could end up more than what we had the year before. But I'm just trying to take that very conservative as far as the revenue side and say that, you know, we get what we got the year before. And go with that for a while until I can see trends that tells me I think it's better to do it with more projected growth. But for our state revenue, the first block tells you last year's, our FY21 initial and our midterm. You can see the $621,757 increase. The difference between that and what I have on the first side is the CPA and capital grants are not included on our QBE sheet. So that's why the QBE is only 621, but our whole total was the 635 increase, a 4.61% increase. Our FY22 QBE money, we will receive $13,829,509. That is a 2.47% increase from our beginning initial FY21 money that we had the year before. So this should try to compare our beginning to our beginning, because we know midterm comes around every year, which they could give or take away. And this is our QBE earnings for our last 11 years. You can see that in amended formula years, when we didn't have amended formula last year and in 22, but you can also see the growth of the less local 5 mills from 5.8 million in 12 to 7.3 million in 22. So as long as we have growth of property tax and values, then our local mills are going to continue to increase, which will decrease our state funding. So for a summary, our FY22 Georgia State Department of Education initial QBE sheets were earning $13.829 million for 229.93 funded positions. And in 21, it was 13.496 million at 230.12 funded positions. That's 0.33 million of increase with a 0.19% less funded position, or a 2.47% increase. We received our 2019 sales ratio study in June 11th, 2020. We have not received it for this year. In 2018 and 2019, we had the ratios of 38.17 and 38.68. So we expect to receive our 22 sales ratios tax study sometime this month. It's also too early to have preliminary numbers from the tax commissioner's office, and we hope to receive preliminary numbers by the end of June from them. But I do have for you our millage rate over the years from 1997 to 2020. And you can see that our rollback rate of 10.391 is the lowest millage rate in the entire chart. And as far as we can see, we don't anticipate any reason not to go with the rollback rate again this year.
Go back to that slide. We're so blessed to see growth in Fannin that allows us to do that. Remember our anomaly year, 2017 to 2018, the millage looks like it goes the same because of the digest. That 11.23 was actually a tax decrease because of the explosive growth. So we don't with the rollback, we're going to decrease taxes for the past 5 years.
It means that people are moving to tourism, moving to Fannin.
And land values are going up.
So, to continue, Dr. Whitney and I have been working on the general fund budget and reviewing all of our employee compensation packages and requests from our principals and our directors. And we have also performed a thorough analysis of our classified personnel salary tables. Dr. Whitney and I discussed this project 2 years ago. He charged me with this task last year with COVID-19, and the state budget cuts froze all our spending and delayed us until now.
So you remember this thing came 2 years ago, and that was one of the first things that we talked about. We need to examine the scales as they apply to our classified folks and develop some type of framework, some type of system that's similar to the professional teacher pay scale. So we had that discussion 2 years ago. That was something I wanted Ms. Fannin to take her first year in Fannin County as an opportunity to get to know the finances of Fannin County, the structure of how the existing scales were going. So a year ago, a little over a year ago at this point, that was going to be the task for last spring. And then when the governor announced a 14% cut, that had to be done. We went to basically a survival, essentially.
Financial everywhere.
Everywhere, that's true. So that's been the big project since we felt comfortable enough to reinitiate that project last spring. And this was alluded to in a previous meeting.
Great amount of work, and we're so appreciative.
Yes, this is a huge task because there was no consistent pay scale formula for classified personnel in Fannin schools.
So in our review, we found that we should update all our classified salary tables so that our number of years and the step increment percentages are the same across the board for the salary tables. So we currently had some salary tables with only 10 steps, others with 20 steps, some even with 25 or more steps, and we also have some classified employees who are not on a table at all. So in our current tables, we had step increment percentages between step ranges of a 0.61% for a step increase after a year of service up to 3%. So what we have done is we have taken all current classified salary tables that we could and added a 1% across the board increase to step 0. A 2% step increment has then applied to each step after 0 up to step 21. We have completely redone some classified salary tables to make sure that they're competitive and in line with what the job normally pays. And we have created a classified salary table so that all classified employees can be placed on the salary table.
This is huge. If you go back to that.
It's been time consuming. It has been a project this year.
It's in looking at the second bullet, I think it's you know, with some scales having to be completely redefined, some scales, especially ones that have a minimum number of steps on a scale, starting pay had to be adjusted accordingly. But the goal was to see that everybody would receive at least 11%.
1% raise.
But to try to create a beginning starting pay that's competitive with what the job is, comparing us to other districts surrounding Fannin County, and then building something that is approximately 2% step between steps up through 21.
Correct.
Which is very similar to the teacher pay scale.
And this is something that may carry into year 2 to finish or to tweak as well.
That's something that would really be appreciated.
I think the classified folks will appreciate it.
Me too.
That's important to me. As you saw in the photos earlier, I started as a classified before. Pay scales, to be able just to have them in a situation where the classified pay scale is similar to the teacher pay scale, I think that will allow the employee to better track and understand their pay and what they're earning.
Now, this here is a review of our TRS rates. Our TRS for 2021 was 1906. It will increase a small amount to 19.81%, but that's not going to affect our general fund. It's not going to be a significant amount. It's still much less than what it was in 2019 and in 2020. So what we have included in all the salary and benefit numbers for FY22 is the money to continue to fund a portion of each employee's single healthcare insurance coverage at $72.45 a month and single dental coverage at $27.73 per month.
That's a benefit for all employees.
That's $869.40 per year for health care, $332.76 per year for dental insurance per employee. This is a board-funded insurance benefit worth $1,202.16 per employee per year, and a benefit for working for the Fannin County School System. So just to give you an example, the total cost of 447 positions is $388,000 for healthcare, $149,000 for dental insurance, and the number of positions enrolled may vary. And I will also reach out to Georgia Flexible Benefits and before our next board meeting to make sure that the dental insurance rate is not changing and whatnot before we finalize our budget.
Didn't have SPOS funds to take care of other matters. You couldn't begin to do that, could you?
SPOS helps a great deal.
It certainly does. It helps free up the general to do things like that and take care of the employees. Absolutely.
It does. And so that kind of concludes our general fund portion. And then we have our elementary and secondary emergency relief fund, which is ESSER 3, or the American Rescue Plan, or this is for special revenue. The purpose of this was signed into law March 11, 2021. Our ARC ESSER fund can be used in many allowable ways, including warning loss, facility repairs and improvements. Fannin County's grant, our grant is $4,411,721. 20% of the budget must address warning loss. That's $882,344.20. Our proposed budget reserves 51% to address warning loss. This budget is unlike the preceding CARES and ESSER budgets. It requires us, the LEA, to seek stakeholder feedback before submitting the budget to the Department of Education for approval, which is why we advertise this in the newspaper as well and have this in our public budget meeting. The ARC funds will expire on September 30th, 2024. And here we have a pie chart and a draft budget of the Fannin County School System proposed expenditures. The HVAC for Fannin County Middle School is $1,050,500. The high school has HVAC for $775,500. West Fannin Elementary School has windows for $175,000. We have interventionist, school-based MTSS coordinator, $1,750,000. Interventionist materials, $146,121. Summer learning, $144,600. A mental health counselor for $100,000, and the Fannin County High School parent liaison for $70,000. So that makes up our proposed expenditures in our draft budget that we're seeking input, stakeholder input for.
we'll pause right there for just a moment. Does the board have any questions about either the purpose or the proposed expenditures of this special federal funding?
Does the mental health counselor do all the schools? So that's
Yes.
one position.
And we'll let, go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, the mental health counselor position is going to serve all 5 elementary schools. They're going to help us to do some all 5 schools. Social emotional learning to do like the tier 1 support, but what their primary responsibility is for those kids, we call them like tier 3 kids that are in more of your crisis situation due to anxiety or different issues, and it's outside of special education. This could just be for normal anxiety or all the way up to whatever suicide ideation that will help support these children in finding the right avenue to be able to access their social environment. So they won't necessarily be looking at doing like the private counselor does, like 6 to 10 sessions every time. They're probably going to be more of what I call a triage to help coordinate the kid, get them back settled and acclimate to the school environment and work with the teachers, and then to also coordinate with community support providers. So we have that triangulation with them being a good point, working with the community for outside support and working with the school, so that everybody can come on board to help those students.
I'm very proud of that 4th bullet point. 20% of the budget was what was required to address learning loss, but we dedicated 51%. With the difficulties that the pandemic produced, with quarantine and kids having to miss extended time at school, I'm so very proud of that emphasis on addressing that learning loss and providing a way to get these kids back up to speed.
Any other comments? Ms. Reagan, do you have any other thoughts in addition to what has been shared already?
No, other than some of the numbers up here, remember this is the 3rd CARES budget, and so some of the items that are in here are also funded by the progressive budget, which immediately preceded this one. So even though the number may look different, like SCHS period is on 70,000, the cost of fiscal years here. So these funds expire on September 30, 2024. So the numbers you see here are not for 1 year's worth of operating expenses. It may be up to 3 years for these to operate. So that huge number there for interventionists and the school-based MPSS coordinator, that is a multi-year to be able to fund those positions, not for a 1 year position.
Yes, sir.
Will the HVAC, will that hit into like any of our capital funds or anything as far as taking us away from getting state money?
No, it will be able to help us better use that somewhere else. So my understanding is
That is correct. It will help us to take care of this project using federal funds to leverage these funds for that purpose, which is allowable. That will give us more local funds and state funds to use for other projects that might not be funded otherwise. And so it was actually his request that we did include these in our budget, and so the quotes for those actually came through the maintenance department.
And as you know, these funds expire sooner than some of those other funds. So that's strategic to be able to retain that state money longer. It's a great question. Any other for? Ms. Reagan, thank you. Shannon, thank you. Ms. Wood?
So that's all the special revenues I have at this time, because we don't have any numbers on Title I, Title IV. Those just have not come from the state. We have to have those for our next government budget meeting. So we'll continue on to our SPLOST. And our SPLOST projected for FY22, this is just divided by category. This is not that we're still working on this budget. So we just have transportation, curriculum, media, technology, STEM, photocopiers, and facility property. And these amounts that I just kind of have used as a projection, which they total up to $13,287,245. So for our SPLOST, our revenue was $6,331,798.20. It's projected to be $8,514,304 in FY21. So So I have just used $720,000 as the per month collection to project $8.640 million for our FY22 revenue. That gives us a projected fund balance of $5,541,962. So that gives us total revenues for 22 of $14,181,962. And then those expenditures listed on the category is $13,287,245. And that would leave us with a fund balance at June 30th, 2022 of $894,717 for our sponsor.
That's an estimate, of course, can vary based on expenditures, and can also vary, of course, based on collections.
And we'll have more detail as the time comes closer to giving you an advertised, which our next public budget meeting will be in July. And that is when we plan on presenting you with a budget to approve to advertise. And then that budget that we advertise for a revision of that budget will be adopted for our timeline when we set our millage rate in August. Do I have any questions or comments?
Ms. Swain has put in a great deal of work to get us this far. It's not done.
We have a lot more to do before the next meeting, but
For July, there'll be some refinement to these numbers, and then also as we get numbers from the county government, we'll be able to, I think we'll be able to approve something in August. I'm optimistic.
we'll have a budget that we can advertise in August. I mean, in July, or
That we can approve it.
in August.
Question for you, that extra that you're gonna have to show us each month, is that gonna be extremely time consuming, or is that just something that you have a program that you're gonna be able to?
No, that's gonna take a little bit of time. PCG will give you certain information that you're going to compile it all together.
It'll take time to put it into, she's gonna have to assemble a lot of data to get it into a nice, quick, make
You're
sense.
gonna have to take multiple capital project funds and assemble it into one spreadsheet. You have to take multiple special revenue funds and assimilate to one.
I guess what I'm asking, is that gonna pull somebody off of something that they would normally do?
It will be me doing it.
Okay, just something extra added to.
It's just something extra added to my duties.
Any other, I tell you, you've just about wrapped it up, and I'll look. Mr. Banner hasn't appeared, has he? Usually he'll let us know if we had any other comments. Okay. All right. Thank you. Well done, Ms. Reed. Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, we can, how many minutes do we have? 3? Stay in recess and close it out at 5:59 if you'd like.
Do we need to adjourn this meeting?
We will adjourn this one at 5:59 and then call the other one at 6. Come on in, folks. Get a seat. Hello. Hello. Good to see you. Hey, Coach. Hi, Coach. Oh, there we go. Good to see you. All right, how we doing? This is what I'm going to say. You're going to have to open. You're going to say what you say. She's trying to sit right there. She's not going to hear me.
I'm gonna tell you the same thing I told Tim, you're not friend, so you need to ask the question,
Want to go ahead and close out?
This time I wanna close out our budget meeting.
You know, motion.
So I need a motion to close out our budget.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Okay, so we'll wait for just a few seconds and we'll call our next meeting.